What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of MMA Crunch Time. Hopefully, no more fights canceled like seconds after the fight. Was supposed to start in lock last week, but Blender, we have a great card this week, a unique card, probably one of the most unique. Would you agree with that? A top range that's limited. I imagine you're going to have to go after it because some low ownerships on the top 4 fighters on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen one of these cards in a while where it's a large card and the spreads of the fights are very small. I mean, like this is what I go over. I know Friday I had a dentist appointment, so I didn't have a pregame show on Friday to go over the UFC slate. But I mean, I mentioned it the week before that this card these are the types of slates I like because there's going to be much less likelihood of duplication in large field because number one, there's 14 fights. So there's a lot of combinations that you can make. And on 14 fight cards, remember the two things that we look at when we're playing GPP is we're essentially in UFC and MMA with the limited amount of options, we're trying to build close to, if not the nut lineup, the best possible lineup that you could make based on the scoring of all the fighters that happen. The more fights there are, that means the more opportunities for fighters to score a lot of points, 100 plus points. So on larger cards, typically you're focused more on ceiling than on win equity, right? A $7,300 dog winning with 70 doesn't mean as much on a card with 14, 15 fights as it does on a card with 11 fights. Less opportunities. And the second thing is the spread of the fights. We've seen a lot of cards, especially the past 3 months, where, the 9K fighters are 3-1 or better favorites. 4-1, 5-1, 10-1.
1,000-1, yeah.
Right. 10-1 at minus 1,000, which means that you're not going to see those cards. It's less likely that a lot of dogs win. And when less dogs win, that means most likely the nut lineup is going to use most, if not all, of the salary.
And you've got grapplers, you got knockout artists, you've got extreme sloppy women's MMA. This card offering, the only thing it's missing is heavyweights. And you know what? We got the heavyweight crap out of the way last week with Chase Sherman pulling out right after lock. But like, seriously, this card, you have 2 old men as the highest priced guys. Like, that fight itself is hilarious and never saw that coming. Let's say that though this MMA Crunch Time brought to you by FanDuel. You can sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get $5, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. Yeah, I mean, this is a betting card too. I know you're not necessarily a betting guy, Jordan, but
I got prize picks.
Yeah, and the thing about it is there's live spots, right? Like if there was live DFS, I want to take some shots at like Ion Cutelaba, most takedowns to gas out and give up 700 points later on in the fight. You know what I mean? There's some sloppiness to be had on this card. And
I know on Twitter, Mike, you gave out 2. Yep. I mixed those 2 in, right? Because I have a lot of MLB stuff. So it's a lot of times I'm pairing my best MLB stuff with anything I could find. So I put in you on Twitter. I mean, I don't in DFS, one of them I have less of, but maybe if it happens, Bolanos is over fantasy points. I don't have as much of that guy in DFS, but I have your over fantasy points on Bolanos, over on Carantillo, and other ones that I have. I got this before it moved, but Pudilova over half a takedown.
Oh, that's a great
now
line.
At 1. It's now at 1, so it could draw. I also have Carantillo over 1.5 takedowns as well.
Yeah,
because Edson Barboza, and I think that's the way to beat Edson Barboza is just take him down,
grind on him. Yeah, for sure. Where do you want to start on this one? Because I mean, I do think I kind of started it off with the highest priced guy being Zach Cummings. Fun fact: he's the only guy that is from this Missouri scene. You think that they might have like some of those ex James Krause guys, Well,
I mean, he hasn't had a fight in 3 years?
Exactly, but he's the only guy from the actual event like area, which is surprising. And it's like he's not like a Donald Cerrone, right? He's not like one of these guys that people even necessarily know. And we have him at 9,600. And on this slate, he's under 20%. These are two old guys that I think the realm of possibilities are kind of all over the place on this fight. And I think people might overlook it. Would you agree? Because, sloppy on the feet, 3 rounds, we expect it. But what happens if one of these shots just lands and they go down? Even, for Ed Herman, second round finish is a beautiful thing for his salary. But Ed Herman looked pretty damn big. I don't know if you saw the weigh-ins. He was pretty huge compared to Zach Cummings.
Well, these guys are washed. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? This could be one. This could be, I think, one of two different types of outcomes. I think it's the less likely outcome. The two more likely outcomes. One fighter is ready to fight, and the other fighter isn't. I mean, they're both over 40 years old. So, it's one fighter has 2 minutes of cardio, and the other fighter just destroys him. It's one of those types of fights, or it's a sparring match. It's we're two old guys. Let's just, slow, sloppy. Neither of them are really going for a KO, and the winner scores 58 points. You could easily be one of those things. I mean, dude, this card is full of untrustworthy people. I mean, it's just full of or either untrustworthy people or trustworthy people that have no ceiling. Like Chris Gutierrez. It's I trust Gutierrez to fight a smart fight against Pedro Munoz. If he does, he scores 62 points in a win. I mean, it's leg kicks, and Munoz has never been knocked out. So, as long as he can avoid getting taken down, maybe, or one good counter punch, that's a fight where there's not much ceiling there. And then we got newcomers. We got, we have I would say the two action fights that are going to be popular on the slate. I think. I think
mid-range.
Right. Well, I think Carantillo is going to be popular, even though Barboza isn't. We have a lot of condensed ownership. What I like about this slate is that there's 14 fights, the spreads are close, and there's still so much condensate, if you want to call it that, on ownership that just avoiding playing these combinations, you may not even I think you do one of two things in your GPP lineups. You're either playing one or two of Holloway, main event fighter, Holloway Allen, Carantillo, Cutelaba, something like if you're going to play two of them, I probably wouldn't play three. You're going to run out of combinations because they're all three guys are going to be 40+% owned. Right. So I wouldn't play all three. I'm playing no more than two in a lineup. But if you play two in a lineup, leave 1,000 of salary on the table. And it's perfectly fine. It's instead of playing Zach Cummings, you're playing Lucy Putilova. Well, I don't mind that. It's Zach Cummings. It's Chris Gutierrez. It's a newcomer, Gaston Bolanos. It's Mateus Nikolai, who typically doesn't fight at a fast pace. We had Dustin Jacoby. Am I that worried? Yes, there's a chance that he could get a knockout, a chance he could get 100+ points, but the difference between him and Chris Gutierrez isn't that different, even though there's a $600 gap and $500 gap in salary. So just leave it on the table. Just that's perfectly fine to do. But if you play none of those three or one of Holloway, Carantillo, Cutelaba, then you have so many more combinations because you're not playing two of three of the most popular fighters. Then you could build, I've built some lineups that I predict to be unique that are 50K, right? And under 5, definitely. But the combinations are, because everyone's available. It's not the type, this isn't a slate where you just X out anyone. Anyone is live. Anyone is live to win on this card. All 28 fighters, right? And there aren't that many high ceiling fighters. This could be a slate almost like last week where maybe we only see two fighters that put up 100 points. Maybe getting 85 points out of a mid-range fighter is maybe that's fine. These ITD lines aren't great anywhere.
And I'll tell you something that's just wild is the contests continue to sell out hours before. It's amazing because They should be growing. They have to be growing, but people are going to get, angry when the fights are canceled, but it's out of our control. We have to remember
I
that.
just hope it's the Gutierrez Munoz fight. If that's the one
Well,
that's canceled,
but
let him.
could you imagine if Munoz had offensive wrestling? The guy would take people down and submit them pretty, not handedly, but he'd have a higher chance. That's the frustrating thing with Painter Munoz, is that he's probably live to win any fight that he's in. He has to get it to the mat, and he can't. And if people are going to shoot takedowns offensively on him, then that presents opportunities for him to get, some type of
but Gutierrez isn't that guy. I mean, no. Gutierrez is almost the worst matchup for him because good luck shooting takedowns with a guy that kicks like 700% of the time.
They both do. I mean, that's the problem. And
right. Well, that's why I said that this is the like if you want to scrap this fight, like it's the fight that I have the least of.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. And then you know what happens, and I know what happens. Some crazy something.
Yeah, to knock it. I mean, I have some. I played 100. I played mostly large field this week, not small field.
That's the way to do it.
I do have some. I have some of everyone. So like the lowest fighter I have is like 6% exposure. And the highest fighter I have is 39% exposure. So I have a lot of combinations, but I just try to avoid the popular combinations. So it's not like, I'm completely fading some of these guys that are popular, just that I don't really want to play them together much.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are getting your questions in the YouTube chat and our Discord. We'll prioritize those Discord questions.
I have one for you, Mike. I have a question for you if I were to type into YouTube, because one of your prize picks is Gaston Bolanos, over 95.5 fantasy points. He's a newcomer. I mean, he's not a new fighter. I mean, he's coming from Bellator. He's 6-3. From what I could tell of his fighting style, like he fits the type of guy that I don't like playing when he's chalk, of like one-dimensional striker that wins a lot of fights with spinning stuff, right? Like that, which is like you can't really bank on that sustainably. I know Aaron Phillips is. I know Aaron Phillips. I mean, Aaron Phillips. I mean, he hasn't fought in God knows how long. And then he took a short notice fight, got smothered by Jack Shore, which I can't blame him for. But before that, he didn't fight for 3 years. So he's like had like one fight in 6 years. Theoretically, he's a BJJ black belt, and Bolanos has no ground game. Like,
doesn't this fight kind of remind you of one that opened up the show a while? What was it? Last card, right? The girl that came out and she was supposed to submit the girl right away.
Right.
First round equity, essentially, right? Completely different styles. You have a grappler versus.
I would have loved for that to happen. She almost had it last week, and then she gassed out in the second round.
Exactly, which is like, I feel like that's what this mold is, right? That Bolanos probably looks good with his spinning crap, right? And then,
Phillips takes over. Let me just make it clear. Phillips probably, most likely, should not be in the UFC.
He's in here to lose. Look at his competition. I mean, they put him against Shore, and then he hasn't fought since 2020 against Shore. Like, we know what the UFC is trying to do here. And one other weird, like, narrative, base, is Gaston Bolanos came from Bellator. When's the last guy that's come from Bellator and gone into the UFC? Typically, the washouts of the UFC go to Bellator and then thrive there, right? Like, it's a very weird.
Are you going to compare him to like Michael Chandler or something?
No. But I'm just saying, like, there's not. It's a weird, like, start.
But Mike, like, he's a $9,200 fighter. Yes, he has the best inside the distance line on the slate, plus 115. But he's only minus 172 to win. Like, it's Aaron Phillips, Mike. Like we shouldn't be treating these people. This comes down from what I said in the very beginning. Like, don't be fooled by the prices of the fighters like we're used to, where a $9,200 fighter would be a minus 300, a nice 3-1 plus favorite. Like, dude, on any other card, if this was a pay-per-view card, right? Bolanos would be like the $8,400 fighter, and Phillips would be $7,800. I mean, like, we'd be talking in that range based on these lines. But like all the fight, like, dude, on any other card, like none of these fighters would be like over 9K. Like Rafa Garcia's would be like a $9,100 fighter on another card where there are 4 fighters that are actually worth 3-1 favorites. So it's like, 90. It's price consideration. I feel. I don't know about you because I did not listen to the Grounded Pound podcast. I did read Liam's article breakdowns and the expert survey of your premium members. Obviously, click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. You'll get the projections, you get the ownership, you get everything. Like I'm building, I've built because I've already built all my lineups. So many lineups that I'm just like I'm slamming these mid 8K guys.
That's it. That's where you live. This card. But my problem is when you do that, right? How many is too many? I mean, I feel like I could just live here and leave $1 million gajillion on the table comfortably, right, Blender? But the problem is, I would, if I'm doing 150 lineups, I might cross off Brazil on up. That's just the way that I would do it because I just think to myself, Rafa, yeah, he can get there, right? But what does Clay do best? He limits output on people unless he's getting submitted,
yeah,
right?
But Clay Guida could be shot. I mean, he could come in, Rafa could wash him out in 2 minutes, boss. I mean, it's possible.
Mahashate butchered the guy up. Mahashate, we've never talked good of.
Yeah, but Mahashate's young, and he's a striker. Guida, what does he do? Nothing.
He's got
plus 750 inside the distance. He has the highest. He literally has the highest ITD line, and that includes Jocelyn Edwards.
And I'm not saying
he can't finish a cheese sandwich.
But his fights tend to be close because he's doing that little freaking back and forth.
But if Rafa Garcia could take him down 6 times, it gets control. I don't mind. To me, price isn't dude. It's not like, oh well, I can't spend up for. If I spend up for Rafa Garcia, I can't get who. Like, who am I not getting? I can play any. I can dude. I can play Aaron Phillips. I can play Brandon Royval. I can play Bruce Murzakhanov, Allen Brown. I can play Denise Gomes. I think at 6,900. Yep.
Win equity.
I mean, look, Bruna Brazil is minus 145 and 9,300 with a plus 270 inside the distance line. On any other slate, this would be like the $8,200, $8,000 fight.
Yeah, and that fight itself has a ton of volatility, right? The Bruna Brazil and Denise Gomes. Like, Denise Gomes could go for takedowns. You could have Brazil look like $1 million on the feet again and get a knockout. Like, there's a wide amount of outcomes in that particular fight. And I think grappling on this card, like we've already nailed Billy Q. Like, we know what he's going to do. He's going to go out there and grapple at a high rate. Like, let's talk about Ion Cutelaba against a guy, Tanner Boser, who's coming down in weight, and Cutelaba goes for takedowns at a high rate. He could have a great first round and then gas out. And then you have the two ladies that are absolute. I would be shocked if Robertson and Rodriguez doesn't hit the mat, Blender. Like, those two ladies, like, Robertson's either trying to get it there, can't get it there, and gets lit up on the feet, or she's having success getting the takedown and then looking for a submission. Like, she doesn't offer you a lot of striking, Robertson. And I think people are going to be drawn into, oh, Robertson can submit this girl, but Rodriguez is pretty darn tough. I think on the feet, it's going to be night and day on that particular fight. And then you talked about it, Pudilova, the over on that number went from half. What a great line you caught there. That's her direct path to go. So it's like this card has everything. And then we haven't even talked about one of the DraftKings goats, I'd say, is TJ Brown has been a goat for us with the takedowns.
Well, goat floor-wise, he doesn't win fights, but he scores a lot when he loses.
Yeah, he gets submitted in the third round, but he gets you your 55 points before that. Imagine if you get those win points.
No, there are guys at dog prices that could put up 100. I mean, dude, TJ Brown, Murzakhanov, Arnold Allen, Brandon Royval, Aaron Phillips. Gomez, I guess. I'm a little bit skeptical about Munoz, Guida, and Herman. But I mean, Herman only for the aspect of it's 2 old guys and who knows what happens. But yeah, I'm 100% on board. But I mean, from an over-owned versus under-owned perspective, because now we have to transplant ownership over it. From me, I mean, I can only describe what I'm doing, and based on my, I put in my ownership, I compare it to lines, I average projections, I do, do all type of computations versus ownership. I still have Billy Carantillo as properly owned at 40%. Because his ceiling at plus 155 inside the distance at 8,700. It's like Carantillo on this slate, like Mike, if Max Holloway was priced at 9,400 and Carantillo was priced at 9,300, I still think I would play both of them. I mean, that's what I mean by the pricing is based on how the styles of fights and how close the fights are. There's not we could, if in hindsight, if you considered how they score, I think Max Holloway should be 9,600. I think Carantillo should be 9,500. I think Cutelaba should be 9,000. Right? Like they should price based on that and not necessarily these small differences in the money line. So like for the price almost doesn't matter. So it's like Zach Cummings, yeah, he'll be lower owned. I have some, right? Chris Gutierrez, Brazil. I think Rafa Garcia at least has more of a path topside with wrestling. But like any of these mid-range players, I mean, if you flip the mid-range and the 9K range, it's quite possible I still play the 9K range with the mid-range, with the fighters that are now priced 600 more. So like, I think I have Cutelaba as about I have Cutelaba at 35%, and he's still efficiently owned just because of upside. The over, if you just want to list for me at least of over-owned versus under-owned, I have Holloway a little bit over-owned at 50%, right? If he comes in at 50, I have him a little bit over-owned. I have Tanner Bozer a bit over-owned at 24% or 22%. Barbosa over-owned at 16%. I got Munoz over-owned even at 12%. Guida over-owned at 10%. Anyone else here of note? I have Arnold Allen. No, he's about efficiently owned. I have Mirzakhanov a little under-owned, but very so slightly. Like the thing about this slate is that there isn't that from an ownership perspective, other than I think two fighters, everyone is kind of efficiently owned. And it just comes down to just making not duplicated combinations. The two fighters that I think are under-owned for their ownership, one is Aaron Phillips that we talked about, and the other is an interesting one. The other's one that a lot of people played his last fight and got completely burned. And I think that recency bias is going to dramatically lower his ownership.
Oh, Mr. Zellhuber, who didn't even get off the bus the last fight. The guy, I don't know what the hell we watched, but he looked like the next coming of God. It looked like he was going to go out there and knock anybody and everybody out. And now he gets the Lando Venata treatment, like you're kind of alluding to, Blender. Like Venata, a journeyman at this stage. I mean, I think after two losses, he's probably out of the UFC. But I mean, here's the thing: there's a lot of narrative. Lando Venata is going to go out here and take him down at will.
But Zellhuber will submit him. That's almost good for Zellhuber.
That means more fantasy output for him. He's coming in, he's going to light him up, or he's going to hit him with a submission, exactly like you said. And how many times do we see this in UFC, where a guy will have a down performance after being the next big thing, and you can buy kind of low on him? I mean, what's his betting odds at this stage? It's probably
minus 127. I mean, it's nearly a pick 'em.
Yeah. And
so many of these fights, to me, to say it's a pick 'em, it's like Billy Carantillo versus Edward Barboza. We're talking about Carantillo being like one of the best plays on the slate. He's minus 160 to win. Like when he wins, he'll probably put up a good amount of points, but like his implied probability is only 62%. Right? Like we're talking about Max Holloway. His implied probability is only 61%. Right? Rafa Garcia is the highest at 72%. That means 28% of the time he loses. So these fights are very close. So like to say that like Zellhuber is any worse of a play than like Pudilova or Robertson or Algeo or Jacoby or Nikolai, or I mean, like at least Bolanos, you got the first round or bust type of nature. Same for Cutelaba. I mean, you got these high ITD lines. Jillian Robertson, I guess, for takedown upside. You got some of this stuff, but like I don't see from a ceiling perspective that much difference between Zellhuber and Jacoby or Zellhuber and Algeo. I mean,
agree.
The ITD lines aren't that dramatic, different. I think Zellhuber, I think is no better than Chris Gutierrez.
And people,
as far as the ceiling is concerned.
When you look at Venata's at 20% on our lineup HQ compared to Zellhuber being, 18-ish? I mean, you talk about this all the time. When you can get like leverage on an inside the distance guy, like that's a beautiful thing, like killing off the Venata side of things, right? You'd be doing that.
I don't think Venata's going to be that. I don't think he's going to be that owned.
I actually do think he will, because just due to the fact that but he's got wrestling, right? He can expose this kid. I mean, I don't
I have him at
necessarily buy
16.
into it.
I have him at 6. I have him. I think he's over-owned at 16, but I mean, once you get 16 is not, I don't consider to be a very owned fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Like, dude, to me, like, I would like Tanner Boser more if he was less owned. It's just that, like, I have him at 22% because Kudalaba is 35%. Like, I'd love to play. Like, yeah, I have plenty of both fighters. I think it's probably the best matchup on the slate outside of the main event to target. But I wish he was lower owned, right? And then Carantillo, it's like, well, do you want to play Edson Barboza? It's like he's plus 400 inside the distance, and his path to 100 points is a first round knock. It's it's so narrow, and I don't think he's going to do it to Carantillo at 37 years old. I mean, like, if anything, Carantillo gasses out in the third round, and Barboza wins a 29-28 decision. But like, just the upside in Barboza, I don't know.
There's a matchup we haven't even talked about. That's probably one of the higher pace. Well, this is one of those crossroads where you just mentioned earlier that this fighter doesn't actually have the best logs in the world, but he's fighting a guy who comes out like a bat out of hell and either is getting finished or going out there to finish. And the realm of possibilities, again, which is good for fantasy, are all over the place. Brandon Royval and Matthias Nikolai. Like, I was hoping that the ownership would be lower on this as a whole. And on the Ground and Pound podcast, I believe I was looking at the ownership in real time, and it said Royval at 9% earlier in the week. And I was like, give me all the Royval at that ownership. I knew that was going to be higher by the end of this thing. But there's something to be said about this fight, particularly, Royval could get finished in the first round and give up 3 knockdowns. Like, that's the ceiling for Nikolai is extremely high because of the fight style for Royval. And if Royval was going to be more popular, it'd make me even want to play with Nikolai even more.
We're on the same page. Because, I mean, when you recorded early in the day, currently we have Royval at 12%. He's going to be twice that. Like, dude, like I have him at 21% owned and projected in my model. I have Nikolai projected for 25%, which is a little bit higher than I would like. But I've out of the fighters over Max Holloway, I've Nikolai ranked 1, Garcia ranked 2, and Cummings ranked 3 when compared to ownership. Right? When compared to ownership. I have Bolanos ranked 4, and that's primarily due to because even though he's going to be more owned, his inside the distance is shown. It's just so much better than Gutierrez in Brazil.
But you hate that type of fighter in Bolanos, who is
when he's popular. Yeah, when he's popular, right? I mean, it's just that he has no wrestling. It's just like he has to win in the first round to score 100 points, or he doesn't. And at 28 to 30% owned, or possibly maybe even slightly higher. Like, dude, I'll take Zellhuber. I'll take anyone. I'll take Nikolai. I mean, dude, you could take anyone. Piera Rodriguez. Like, dude, I have more Piera Rodriguez than I watch more than Robertson. I think she's coming in on. I have her as a bit underowned at 17%. Because if Robertson can't get a takedown, she's dead.
She's done. And we've seen her.
And even if she gets it, like, dude, even if Robertson gets takedowns, like, dude, a reversal and Piera Rodriguez is ground and pounding her to death. So, like, Piera Rodriguez is not this, like, people are used to this Robertson game logs. It's like, this is a different weight class now. And Piera Rodriguez is no slouch. When people have played Robertson, when she smashes, it's when she's like a 9K fight, when she's heavily favored over someone that she has a physical advantage over. She doesn't have a physical. She relies on takedowns, and she's not bigger than Rodriguez.
No, so, but she also doesn't have, like, again, I look for those.
She's no stand-up game. I mean, she's a walking punching bag.
And Blender, she's a lady that's going to look for the control. She's going to hold her arm. She's not doing this, right? She's not playing the bongos. And that's just compounding when you got the, what is it, like 0.03, plus those little pitter patters. I mean, you're just exponentially getting those strikes when you're in top position. And that's just not the mold that she'll be looking for. So, yeah, I agree with you. Piera, I like her. Now let's talk about the main event. And we've kind of not even really talked about it. I want to say, like, Arnold Allen is a guy who could like mess up the apple cart. Now, first of all, for everything, right? Like I think the UFC continues to give Holloway winnable matchups, right? Like what is the UFC doing with him now, right? Like you watch wrestling, you like wrestling. Max Holloway is never going to get another title shot in this division, the featherweight, because there's a guy that's already beat him 3 times. So you're in there to kind of put over new talent or like beat the new talent that's coming up.
He's a high-end gatekeeper.
In Arnold Allen, I mean, there's question marks. I mean, last fight out, he takes the step up against Qatar, and Qatar gets hurt in there, and on his own accord, really, and the fight's over. We don't really get to see him over 5 rounds. So, like, I think this fight actually would look interesting. If Arnold Allen gets a finish, winning lineups are going to look unbelievably crazy if Arnold Allen wins in the first 2 rounds, I think, because his score is going to be like, 85 to 100 points. And
there may be 6 underdogs that score more than that. I mean, like, we're on a slate where, like, Arnold Allen has, like, he doesn't absorb much and he doesn't strike much. I mean, like Arnold Allen, like, sucks the life out of fights. So to me, if anything, this makes me like Holloway less, even if Holloway wins, because at 9K, I mean, like, price doesn't matter. Like, Holloway could win a decision and score 90 points. Like, people are used to these, like, 170 million significant strike fight from Holloway. I'm not sure he's going to get that out of Arnold Allen. And the thing about Allen is that for Allen to score 100 points, that window is small also. If Allen wins a 48-47 decision, like, I still think he only scores 75 points. I mean, like, he just does not throw enough. I don't think there'll be much wrestling. And truthfully, even from a finishing perspective, I mean, I know I just go by the numbers, right? Arnold Allen plus 370 inside the distance, right? 21% implied probability. Max Holloway has never been knocked out. He has never been knocked down in 16 fights.
But Arnold Allen, I mean, you're scratching the surface here of what I wanted to get at. Arnold Allen has 3.4 significant strikes out there for output. He's one of the best defensively sound guys in the division. He's only getting hit 2.25 strikes per minute. That's one of the lowest rates out there. Like, think about the typical
his past 2 fights were against quality competition.
Yeah,
volume competitors.
So that just inherently should limit. I mean, the problem is we have the fight metric scoring who they do what the hell they want. It's
technically not fight metric anymore.
Sorry.
Everyone says fight metric. Fight metric doesn't exist anymore. UFC
stats. The UFC stats bought fight metric. Yeah. But it's like, so whatever
is
that
the
is.
Point, Mike, is the point that you're making that you agree with me that Holloway's ceiling is actually much more limited this fight than people would think?
100%. And it's silly because I still tagged him, but it's like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't, because Holloway, he should still have his typical volume over 5 rounds. This is a pick 'em to go to a decision anyways as a whole. So it's like his floor's there, and he actually doesn't have that bad of an inside the distance line. I mean, I would have expected it to be a little bit stronger. Maybe he wears him down over the 4 or 5 rounds and then takes him out. But I mean, that fight, I'm looking at it as it is. Are you fading in any of those 100
I have
lineups?
100 lineups. I'm severely underweight on Holloway. So out of my 100 lineups, I have 20% Holloway lineups. But of course, to me, it's not about like, do I play Holloway? Do I play? It's just what lineups do I play him in? Like, so my Holloway lineups are more likely not to have Carantillo or not to have Cutelaba, or leave 1,000 on the table, leave 500 on the table. So it's more like that. And I'm playing less of those lineups. To me, on a slate where like everyone's viable, like I'm much more likely to like, let me build 49 5+ lineups that just don't have 2 out of 3 of these guys, that Holloway, Carantillo, and Cutelaba. And I'm not saying that they lose, just saying that they're not optimal. Just it's quite possible Carantillo gets a 3rd round finish and scores 86 points. And it's like, okay, that could be fine at 8,700. Cutelaba could win in the 2nd round by not gassing and put up 92 points and still not. I mean, maybe he's still not. And even maybe 3rd round, who knows? right? Holloway could go 5-round decision and have 83 points. I mean, like
I saw him at like 50% ownership when we recorded the Ground and Pound podcast, and I was like, I can't roster him on this slate. Like you said, like
who are
there's
we
going to be
talking
some
about?
Holloway at
I
50%.
mean,
He was expected or earlier in the week. I was
well,
like,
if it depends on the content. I mean, obviously you could build a lineup with Holloway, but what you're saying is you'd rather get leverage by not playing him than by playing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I agree with you. That's what do you think I'm doing? Primarily.
Yeah. Being smart, trying to win first place by yourself. We have about 8 minutes before lock here, keeping an eye on things. We have to do that nowadays. Doesn't look like any news out there to be had.
And obviously our decisions in the long run over the past 2 to 3 years, we've both made over 6 figures in MMA DFS.
Yeah.
Because all you need is one solo. That's right. And you're good. You're good for a decade.
We like that. Yeah, at least I know that this slate, underdogs are going to win. The one that I had, I was like, I don't think any underdogs.
Well, you got you had 94% Alexa Grasso on a slate where Shevchenko was one of the most owned fighters on the slate. So that's I'm going to make as many combinations of this result as possible, and hopefully this is the one that it happens, and it happened, and there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to scratch the surface here and see if there's anything we missed. I mean, I think we pretty much tackled every single fight here. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see like one of those guys like a Pedro Munoz or Clay. I mean, Clay's narrow. He's not going to score that well, but like a Munoz, Phillips type of fighter.
No. You know what would hurt?
Oh.
Jocelyn Edwards, 170 significant strikes. And something, it'd be like one of those fights where you look and you go, how did she land that many? And you look and you go, oh, because they count like anything.
It's like jab, significant.
Right, then Anita, didn't know whatever not Anita Hill. Angela Hill? There was a recent fight where no. Did Andrea Lee score a ton of points by doing nothing? Well, there was some women's fight that
Macy
Barber. Who?
Macy against Angela. I mean, there's a bunch of phantom stuff in women's MMA fights anyways. I mean, right. I call it phantom scoring, right? Like you just don't know where it's coming from, but UFC Stats believes that there are something. How are you handling the Denise Gomes? I mean, you kind of tackled her earlier.
I barely have any Bruna Brazil.
So you'd be more apt to play Denise or no?
Yeah, I have tons of Denise. Denise Coleman. Like, dude, this fight if we reprice this fight, I mean, these fighters would be like $800 cheaper and $800 more. I mean, this would be like a 8,300, 7,900 fight.
She's more of a cash play. I mean, with the betting odds side of things. I mean, I just don't know what. Well, I guess the realm of possibilities are huge. Like, she could go for takedowns. She might make it competitive on the feet. Like, I guess I understand that.
It's low-level women's MMA, isn't what we like targeting.
My favorite. I love it. It's the best but that's why it's like, at least I think I know what we're going to get out of Robertson Pierre. Like, Robertson isn't going to give you this, right? But at least maybe one of those two women in the Brazil and Gomes, they'll try to like beat their opponent up from top position if they do get it. And I agree with you on the Jocelyn Edwards. If she's the one that turned things upside down on the slate, I'm just going to be frustrated.
One fight we really didn't touch on, only because it's been a kind
Jacoby.
Of talking point. Yeah, in at least gambling circles, is Mirzakhanov a fraud or not?
What? I mean, he has more paths to win the fight. What? Remember when Justin Jacoby fought Ion Cutelaba? And let's just say this: Mirzakhanov isn't Ion Cutelaba, but if Mirzakhanov is going to take him down a couple times in the first round, that could stall out the scoring for Jacoby. And I think either of these guys could land one strike in this whole fight and end it at any time. So I think I have to preface it by saying that, right, Blender? But I mean, Jacoby has volume. The thing you'd be banking on, and at his price point, 8,900, like, he's going to have volume over 3 rounds. It's just once he's on his back, if he gets to his back, because Mirzakhanov's more apt to go for takedowns deeper in fights, right? You look at his few logs, he will win a round. He'll actually lose a round or two and then start mixing in a takedown to get control. But yeah, I mean, I think I tagged him because he's got more paths to win and more paths to score.
I think he has more paths to 100 points. I think regardless of price, 8,900 versus 7,300. Like, you tell me that the same price, I think Mirzakhanov's method of fighting is more conducive to 100. Like, to me, the only way Jacoby gets to 100 points is a first round knockout. Right?
Yeah,
he's not a volume striker or anything, and he's not going to, even on the 30-27 where he stays on the outside and gets 25 significant strikes around. Like, how does he score 100 points without a knockdown or anything? Right? So, but Mirzakhanov on the other hand, right? Mirzakhanov, at least with the grappling upside, I mean, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm much more on the Mirzakhanov side than the Jacoby side, but I mean, I try, like, from a fighter standpoint, it's like I trust Dustin Jacoby as a fighter more than Mirzakhanov. Like to me, I consider, maybe it's wrong, I consider Justin Jacoby to be a smart fighter. Like,
he's tactical.
Right. He will know how to win. He may not score well for you in DFS, but he's more likely to not make basic fight IQ mistakes. And typically, that's not good for DFS. We want to target the fights where people make drastic mistakes, like Brandon Roval and TJ Brown and Lando Venata and Ian Kudalaba. And I mean, like, there's so many guys on this slate that are just like, they just go, you go out and go, what are you doing?
Think about the weight class too. Like, I like targeting the lower weight classes. Should be faster paced. This being light heavyweight, they just stare at each other and point and go, who's going to strike first? And it's a counter strike. It's more methodical. That's the concern, really, which you nailed for this one. We're under 2 minutes now for lock. Still good. Fingers crossed. If they
now
come
they'll
across,
announce it'll be 5:30. I'll turn it on. I'll be like, we have bad news for you. The whatever fight is most, it's going to be whatever fight. How come it always seems to be? It's not true, but it always seems to be whatever fight is one of the most owned, right? Because like Cerrone Lausanne was like scrapped, right? That was like high owned, and then Romanov was high owned.
Remember, Ian Kutulaba's last fight was a main event. People forget that.
All right,
because a fight got canceled.
Right. But it's like, if anything, it's like, okay, Gutierrez, Munoz, be that one. No, it's probably going to be something that that everyone has. It's going to be the Kudalaba Bozer fight, right? Exactly. Right, or the main event or something, right?
Yeah, and it's not like you can go into
it normally doesn't happen this much. I've been playing for almost 3 years. During COVID, it didn't even happen. Fights were canceled throughout the week, but not the day of, right? No. And then the year after that, there was I think 2 over the course of an entire year. Now it seems like just in the past 5 months, there's been 5 times that something's been scrapped after lock.
And you know why? It's been food poisoning 90% of the time, which is guys, once you rehydrate, don't go out and eat friggin' Five Guys or sushi. Stay a little bit more healthy. Remember this Crunch Time brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in a legal sports betting state, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers can get $5 up to $150 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. Again, I said this from the get-go. If they had live DFS and live sports betting, which I have finally, this is that type of card, because you're going to see, an Ian Kudalaba get, a zillion takedowns and then gas out and get taken over late. And that's the edge we like to have. Again, we've hit lock. Fingers crossed. Hopefully things stick together. I think we nailed this slate, Blender. Final thoughts?
No.
Good.
Let's watch the fights.
Let's have some fun. Follow us at Twitter, at Blender HD and at H3 Buddha. We will see you guys for the next card.